Hey, what's going on, guys? Charles Walker here, back with another video for you guys. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're talking about rental arbitrage or Airbnb arbitrage. You may have heard of this, you may have not, but it has been one of the most talked about things within the short-term rental space within the past few years, really. So if you're curious to know what is rental arbitrage, how can I get started, or should I even get started, make sure you stay tuned. Now, some of you guys might be thinking like, why is that even a business model? That makes no sense, right? I would rather just own my property and I'll just put it on Airbnb or I'll put it on short-term rental. Well, here's the thing. Rental arbitrage is something that you can get into. It's a lower barrier to entry, and you can actually get into the space without owning a property. You can lease a property from a landlord and still get it on the market. But first off, I want to tell you guys my story and how I got started in rental arbitrage. I started out a little over 2 years ago, September 2023, and man, I remember like it was yesterday because I had no idea what I was doing, man. I just knew that, I got some sales experience, I know I can negotiate, and I know I can just talk to landlords, see if they'd be willing to allow me to lease their property and I put it on the market, right? Wrong, man. I literally got shut down by the first few landlords, and I just kept pressing. And then what happened, I found a beautiful lakefront home. It's in Kego Harbor, Michigan. That's where I'm from, right? And I'm like, perfect. This looks like a good deal, right? It had like the rent was like maybe $4,600 or something like that. I knew I could negotiate, right? And then I just started looking. I'm like, okay, this might be it. Now, the reason why I like this property is because it had lakefront access. It wasn't right on the lake, the main lake, but it was right on a little lake that connected to the big lake that's very popular in that area. So I said, all right, this might be an opportunity here. I'm crunching the numbers. I'm seeing if it works. All right, they want $4,500 for rent, but it would have to make X amount of dollars. Like, I was just looking at everything. How can I make this deal profitable, right? We scheduled a time to get in, looked at the property, man, and I loved it. So here's what I did. I went to the landlord and I basically pitched to them what I was looking to do. I said, hey, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I really like your property and I'm able to pay your monthly rent. But here's the thing, I'm gonna put your property on Airbnb and VRBO. Okay, I'm gonna sublease it, but here's the thing, I'm responsible for everything. Anything that goes wrong, I'm responsible. Obviously, just like a regular tenant would be, right? I'm responsible for everything that's off your shoulders. And just so you know, I'm gonna put your house on the market. So I was being completely transparent with them right off the bat. I'm gonna furnish you, I'm gonna do all that, right? Anyway, fast forward a little bit, it took a little bit of back and forth, but eventually, man, we nailed the deal. We nailed the deal, and I didn't even have to show income, man. It was really just off of like my personality, energy, and the landlord just wanted to take a shot on me, mainly because they wanted their rent paid every single month, right? They want to make sure they obviously he's the guy and he's sharp. So literally just the transparency of me sitting them down and just telling them, hey, this is what I want to do, put them at ease. They said, all right, this is a very straightforward guy and I'm willing to take a shot on him. He's sharp, etc. Right? So that's what they did, man. They took a shot on me. I was able to get the property, furnish it, put on the market, and the rest was history, man. But I want to tell you guys a little bit about the process with them. Now, here's the thing. Up front, I signed a 2-year lease because for me, rental arbitrages don't really make sense unless you're signing for 2 years plus, right? Because the second you start to make money, especially in like a cold environment such as Michigan, Ohio, or something like that, it's like you're going to capitalize on the summer months, then I'm going to have to give it up right at the end of the summer again. It just didn't make sense, right? So what I did was I signed a 2-year lease to make sure that I had enough money to make in both summer months before I had to give it back to the landlord. Now, that was the plan, but I did not make it to the 2 years, and here's why. So I signed a 2-year lease up front. Everything was moving fine. I was going through the motion. I had another Airbnb property, so I already knew what I was doing, but I was just going through the motions, making sure everything was working towards being profitable, and then little things started to come up. Cancellations or guests wanting refunds, and this is the winter months, keep in mind. Like, it was September, and then until like the winter months is when everything was like, all right, I need to get to profit mode. I need to get, I invested a lot up front, let's get the profit mode, right? But guest cancellations started to happen, like I said, little plumbing issues here and there, little other issues that I had to fix and take care of. Like I said, all the liabilities on me. So if a guest messes up something, yeah, I can put in a claim with Airbnb and try to get my money back. But oftentimes it doesn't even make sense to like go after your money on like little tiny stuff. You just take care of it, right? So that's what started to happen, man. It was like, I tried to get a break even, and then all of a sudden it's like a little bit back. Break even, oh no, a little bit back, right? And then it took all the way till spring to finally started to like breathe. I'm like, perfect, this is like about to break even. And then summer hit, bam, I'm profitable. I'm able to pay myself a little bit of salary now, right? And so what happened was I had the property, and so I did very well with the property up front, but it got to a point where it just started being a hassle, and a couple of the cons that I want to talk about here in a second just didn't really add up anymore. It's like the cons are outweighing the pros for me, and I would just rather allocate my resources, allocate my attention, allocate my time other places, right? And so I ended up having to renegotiate with the landlord. They cut me a really big deal because the city was already didn't want me Airbnb in the house anyway. So they like literally, I was able to get out scot-free. But that is my story on rental arbitrage. All right, now let's go on to the pros and the cons of rental arbitrage and something that you should consider. I want to start off with the cons right off the bat. All right, the first con to rental arbitrage is no appreciation or no equity. Now, why is this a con? Well, first of all, one of the perks of buying a house is you get appreciation, right? Your home goes up in value and now you have a ton of equity in the property, right? Or when you pay down on the mortgage, now you have equity that way as well, right? Well, you do not get that with rental arbitrage. It's literally, like I said, you're renting from a landlord. So every payment that you make, you do not get back. That is not equity going towards your principal balance, right? That is profit going into the landlord's pocket every single month. And you have nothing to show for it at the end of your lease term, right? So that is one of the biggest things about rental arbitrage. Now let me give you an example on this. Let's say that you live in a cold state, but you guys have beautiful summers, okay? In the summer, you have lakes, you have all these national parks, you have all these things to do, but in the winter, it's super cold and people would rather be in Florida, Texas, they'd rather be in the warmer states, right? So in these seasons, sometimes you might have to lose money. Now, even if you dynamically price your properties, which is basically lowering the price to get booked during certain seasons, even if you do that, sometimes you can still lose money depending on how bad the winter was. Maybe it's a recession, whatever the case may be, right? Now, here's the thing. When you own your properties, every loss is not really a loss because it's appreciation, right? You're able to get equity off of those payments. If you lose money in a rental arbitrage deal, that money is gone, right? And that's the biggest thing, and that's why it's number one on the list. Now, the second one is updates. If you ever want to make updates to your property, you do not get that money back, right? If I want to put backsplash on the kitchen, obviously, I can't even do that because I would have to take it out before the lease is over, right? But you just cannot do any updates. And if you do, you're not getting that money back. Same thing if something breaks, like let's say a pipe burst or let's say any kind of plumbing issue and you need to upgrade it or you want to like update it or whatever, you're not going to get that money back if you have to upgrade it, right? I had a garbage disposal break on me once. I got one of the nicest garbage disposals, so it never happened again. But guess what? I don't get that money back. That's now the landlord's. So that's another big one, is not being able to do updates on your property. Now the third one is lower cash flow. So whenever you buy a property, obviously your mortgage is always going to be cheaper than a rent payment, right? We can all agree on this. If you're in a regular market cycle and you have to buy a property, your mortgage is going to be very low relative to the rent payments in the market area, right? This goes because obviously the landlords have to pay a mortgage and they need to bump it up to make profit from the renter, right? Same thing with rental arbitrage. If you're going to rent a property from a landlord, your rent is going to be significantly more than what an average mortgage payment would have been on that property. So that eats into your cash flow, just inevitably, right? I have higher expenses now. I have the mortgage, which is basically, with the rent, which is basically double what a mortgage would have been. Now that's eating into my profit if I would have otherwise owned the property. And the last one is no personal touches. You cannot do any personal touches on the property, like I said, because if you do, you're gonna have to take it down at the end. If I wanted to paint this wall, because I think that this would be a beautiful accent wall right here for people to take pictures with or whatever, I can't do that. And if I do, I'm gonna have to repaint it the same color it was before I made the changes, right? Or any kind of, maybe a back deck. Maybe you wanna add like a permanent umbrella, whatever it is, right? You cannot add in your personal little touches because, like I said, when you give the property back, it has to be in the exact condition as when your landlord gave it to you. And if you don't, then you pretty much just ate the cost. Like you pretty much just updated their house for them. So they're just gonna give you a nice thank you. Now, like I said, those are some pretty significant cons. I only give you guys 4, all right? Now let's go into the pros of rental arbitrage. Number 1 is approval odds. Obviously, it's very tough to get approved for a mortgage if you have any kind of confusing income or if you don't, report to the IRS, you don't report to Uncle Sam, man, anything like that, anything weird going on that lenders can't approve for you to get a mortgage, you're always going to have to rent anyways, right? So that brings me to rental odds. So that's why your approval odds are much better on a rental property. You're able to get into the property with maybe a little bit of income documentation, maybe a little a soft credit pull, right? You're able to get in with them not having to know your past 10 years living history and things like that, right? You don't need that on the mortgage, but I'm over exaggerating a little bit. But like I said, man, it's just easier to get approved for a rental. And like I said, in my story, I was able to just like talk to them. I didn't even show them a single pay stub. I wasn't employed at the time. I basically showed them what I made at my last job, and I told them like who I am and what I do and how I make money. And they were like, cool, I can go with that, right? So my approval odds is basically through the roof with that. I just had to talk and I got approved for the house. It was a $500,000, maybe it's $700,000 house on the lake that if I would have tried to get a mortgage for that, they would have laughed me out the bank, literally, man. So that is the beauty about rental arbitrage, is the approval odds. The second pro is limited liability. I don't know if you guys are like me, but anytime I rent something, I literally feel like I'm less liable for certain things, right? Like, first of all, it's a mental thing for me, so I'm like, perfect, that's all good. But also, I just don't have any long-term liability on this property. If the roof catches on fire, or if the basement or the crawl space floods, that's not on me, that's on the landlord, right? That's a default in your property, right? Obviously if it's something like somebody left the shower on, that's different. But basically, like, these long-term things that can happen to a house, the long-term depreciation, long-term deterioration can be scary at times, especially if you're not a very liquid person holding on to cash, right? So the beauty about rental arbitrage, in my opinion, is that you kind of get to take some of that liability off of you. That huge $700,000 house, like I said, if something happened, if it crumbled, the foundation crumbled, that's not my pocket. That's the landlord's pocket. And that's the beauty of limited liability. The third pro is cash on cash return is higher, right? Whenever you try to get a mortgage, or whenever you try to buy a property for Airbnb or short-term rental, you're often gonna have to go into the property with more money down. Whenever you buy a property, you need down payment, right? What else do you need? I need inspection, I need appraisal, I need closing costs, I need all these fees that you otherwise would not have if you did a rental arbitrage deal. So the overall cash that I spent to get into that rental arbitrage property was way cheaper than if I were to buy that same property. The cash invested versus the cash return would have been much higher on the rental arbitrage versus if I bought. And that brings me to the last pro, which is number 4, is move in ready. This is a huge thing, guys. Like I said, not only will you have to have down payment costs, appraisal, and all this stuff if you buy a property, but with rental arbitrage, it's move in ready. I don't have to do certain things, right? Whenever you buy a house, you probably, oh, I want to update that kitchen. Oh, this needs to be fixed. Oh, I need a stove now. Boom, right? When you do a rental arbitrage, the stove's already there, usually, right? Some landlords, slumlords, they might not give you as one, but whatever, right? The refrigerator is almost always there, blinds, etc., right? So that's the beauty of a rental arbitrage deal. I'm able to walk into the property and get it turned around, get it furnished in a couple weeks, and I'm making money, right? Versus if I would have bought that same property, I would have had to do all these different things just to get it to move in ready for my next tenant. And also, it's just quicker closing in general. Like, you can close on a rental application in a couple days if the landlord's quick, right? But as opposed to a mortgage process with appraisal and everything taking forever, you can last up to 30 days. That could be a month of you not making any money. And what if it's a hot season like the summer, right? So just keep that in mind. So those are the pros and cons, man. I gave you guys 4 cons and I give you guys 4 pros. Do that with what you please, man. But I just want to give you guys my overall summary of rental arbitrage. Personally, I love it as a business model. Like I said, all the pros, they're great, right? It's actually good for people to get experience. It's good for people to basically just start off and get their feet wet with, like I said, quicker. I can maybe get into a property just off of talking. I'm able to have less money. Like, all these things, it's beautiful if you want to learn the business and want to learn the process, right? But for me, moving forward, I would never do a rental arbitrage deal again unless it's a crazy steal. Unless it's like the landlord's just ready to get rid of the property and it's a beautiful lakefront home, or it's like something very unique about the property. That's the only way I'll do it, because the cons for me outweigh the pros. Like, I need to be able to get equity. I'm a mortgage broker, right? That's what I do for a living. So I love being able to borrow against homes and use equity to make and buy other properties, or buy this business and buy this thing, right? So if you're somebody that does rental arbitrage, that is a huge piece of the pie that you're missing out on, man, which is that equity. Houses appreciate all the time. You're able to write it off on taxes, depreciation. There's just so many tax benefits and just plays that you can run when you own the property versus when you rent. So that is why for me, I would never do rental arbitrage again unless I said it's a crazy deal. But also, I learned a lot of things like cash flow management. I learned how to find a good deal regardless of even higher numbers. So that means that if rates are at 10% or something like that, I'm able to still find good deals and see how numbers will work. A lot of people right now, they're scared of these high interest rates. They're coming down right now, but people are scared of like high interest rates. And I'm like, man, I had a rental arbitrage deal go through. like I know if rates are at 15%, I can still find good deals and I can still make things happen. And that's the beauty. It just taught me so many things, man. And I wouldn't trade that opportunity and those lessons for anything, man. It was a very powerful lesson, and I'm glad I can share it with you. So that's all I got for you guys, man. Make sure you hit the like button if you guys enjoyed this video, man. It'll mean a lot to me. And it also just shows me that you guys are appreciative of this content I'm putting out, that you want to see more things like this, man, and that you got value. So, and also let me know down in the comments what else you guys want to see. If you guys want to know more about my story in rental arbitrage, if you guys want to know anything about the real estate mortgage market and my opinions, man, put it all down in the comments, and maybe I'll do a video on it if enough people, inquire about it, all right? So like I said, man, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.